This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, all. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today's topic is anatomy of orbit. Okay, this is a new chapter after lacrimal apparatus. So from today we are going to start orbit. Okay. So coming to anatomy of orbit. So this part is orbit. Whatever is this present here. Okay. The magnification of this is this one. So in this image you can see this is the floor of the orbit. Okay, this becomes the floor. This part will be the apex of the orbit where I have kept the arrow mark. Okay, so this is the roof of the orbit. This is medial wall. This is lateral wall. Okay, and there will be superior and inferior walls also. Okay, so you can see that it is, imagine this is a cone, your ice cream cone. This will be the base of the cone and the apex will be inside, interior, it will be here. Okay, so it will be just like a ice cream cone like this. So whatever you're seeing will be the base of the cone where you keep the ice cream. Okay, and this is the apex of the cone. Okay, so superiorly the anatomical space, this is a space, orbital space is superiorly. There will be anterior cranial fossa. Medially, you can see here there is nasal cavity and the ethmoidal air sinuses. And inferiorly will be the maxillary sinus. Here you can see the maxillary bone. So this is the maxillary sinus. And laterally you can see middle cranial fossa. Okay, so as a total orbit is made up of 7 bones: the ethmoid bone, frontal bone, lacrimal bone, maxillary bone, palatine bone, sphenoid, and zygomatic bone. This is a very important viva question. So how many bones the orbit is made up of? It is made up of 7 bones. Okay, so they will ask what are the 7 bones. You're supposed to tell all these bones. Okay, sorry. So coming to embryology, which is not very important for you, but I've just kept one slide. It is derived above mesenchyme, the tensor kills the optic vesicle. Below and laterally, it is derived from the maxillary processes. Medially from the frontonasal process. Because medially there is nasal, this is the frontonasal process. Behind orbitosphenoid process. It develops from the enchondral ossification, which is a part of from the base of the skull, and membranous ossification is by rest of all the parts bones. Okay, by 6th to 7th month, laying down of bones starting with maxillary process of gestation. So during this, here you can see here, this is the lateral nasal process. Okay, so this is the frontonasal process. This will be the mandibular. This is the hypomandibular. Okay, this picture is a little bit hazy. Okay, coming to gross anatomy, these are the dimensions. Always remember there is a very important viva question in this. What is the volume of the orbit? It is approximately 30 ml. Okay, so volume of the orbit is to volume of the eyeball is 4.5 is to 1. Okay, so the volume of the eyeball, if you think it is 1, then the volume of the orbit will be 4.5. Okay, so the depth will be approximately 42 mm along the medial wall, and along the lateral wall it will be about 50 mm. So along the lateral wall, it will be about 50 mm. So intraorbital width, the distance between the medial margins of both orbits will be about 25 mm. I'll show you the picture. Intraorbital width means if this is one eyeball and this is the other eyeball, between the medial sides, that is medial wall of the right eyeball and the medial wall of the left eyeball, then the distance between these two will be around 25 mm, and the extra orbital width, that is the distance between the lateral margins, that is this lateral wall of the right eyeball and the lateral wall of the left eyeball, will be about 100 mm. So medial means that intraorbital means both the medial walls of both the eyeballs, and that will be about 25, and the lateral walls of the both eyeballs will be the extraorbital width, that will be about 100 mm. Okay, so orbital index, what is index? Height by width into 100. Okay, you can see depending upon the race, we can say that magazines, that is orientals, that will be more than 18, and there will be a big orbit in these people. Caucasians, it will be about 83 to 89. These are called as Mesoscenes, that we are Caucasians will be having normal. This is usually what Caucasians will have. So Negroes, they will have less orbit, or the orbital index, that is less than 83. These are called as microscenes. I told you what is the orbital volume. Now coming to the angulations between lateral wall and the sagittal plane, it is approximately 45 degrees. Actually, this is not required for you people. Coming to contents of the orbit, there will be an eyeball, which is 1/5 of the orbit, because the orbit volume and the eyeball volume is about 4.5:1. There are muscles, 4 recti, 2 oblique, lateral palpebral superioris, and Muller's muscle. These are the muscles which are present in the orbit. Nerves present in the orbit: second, third, fourth, sixth, V1, that is the lacrimal, frontal, and nasociliary, V2, infraorbital, and zygomatic. Okay, so these are the nerves which are present in the orbit. Vessels, we have ophthalmic artery, which is the main artery and its branches. Infraorbital vessels, branch of middle meningeal artery, and superior inferior ophthalmic vein. These are the vessels which are present within the orbit. Along with that, we will have orbital fat, reticular tissue, orbital fascia, lacrimal gland, and lacrimal sac. These are the contents of the orbit. Okay. Just 1 second. So coming to attachments. Behind post-lacrimal crest are Horner's muscle, septum orbital, and check ligament of medial rectus. These are all the attachments where what we have. Okay. So orbital surface related to superior orbic and medial rectus. In between two lies between superior orbic and medial rectus. You can see if this is the eyeball, I'm just drawing with the arrow. This will be the superior oblique, and here will be the medial rectus. Between these two, what are present is the anterior and posterior ethmoidal nerve, intertracheal nerve, and terminal branch of the ophthalmic artery. Okay, so clinical applications, why this is needed? Because medial wall is the thinnest wall. Sorry, somehow I missed this slide. So this is about the medial wall I'm talking about. So walls of the orbit, the first one is the medial wall. It is a quadrangular wall. It is made up of these 4 bones. That is the frontal process of the maxilla, lacrimal bone, ethmoid bone, orbital plate of ethmoid bone, and sphenoid bone. So maxilla, lacrimal, ethmoid, and sphenoid. These are the 4 bones by which the medial wall is formed. Okay, in anterior part, lacrimal fossa is bounded by anterior lacrimal crest, which is a maxillary bone, posterior lacrimal crest from the lacrimal bone. Okay, so I told you the attachments of the medial wall. And these are the nerves. What is the importance of medial wall? This is the thinnest wall. This is a viva question for you. What is the thinnest wall? Then we have to say that it is the medial wall. Ethmoidosis is commonest cause of orbital cellulitis due to the erosion of this wall, especially in children. If there is ethmoidosis, that is ethmoid sinus inflammation is there, then the commonest cause in children for cause of orbital cellulitis is ethmoiditis. Why this will progress into the eyeball? Because of the thinnest wall of the medial wall. Because the medial wall is thinnest, there will be small erosions in the medial wall because of the inflammation, and the inflammation will spread into the orbit, causing orbital cellulitis in children. Okay, it is commonly eroded by chronic inflammatory lesions, any cysts or neoplasms which are adjacent to the air sinuses. Injury to this valve can cause submucral hemorrhages due to injury to the ethmoidal vessels. Because this is the thinnest valve, it is more prone for injuries and inflammation and fractures. Easily fractured during injury or orbitotomy or operations. Medial wall you can easily visualize by PA view of the radiograph skull. So that because this is the thinnest wall, all sort of problems are very, this wall is more prone with all sort of problems. Okay, now coming to inferior wall, this is a triangular wall. Okay, inferior wall is a, you can see here, this is the inferior one, this is a triangular wall. It is made up of, and this is the shortest. Thinnest is the medial wall, shortest is the inferior wall. So medially, because M and M comes the maxillary bone, laterally the zygomatic bone, posteriorly the palatine bone. Okay, so this is the shortest and medial wall is the thinnest. Inferior wall is the shortest. So inferior orbital fissure separates posterior part of floor from the lateral wall. Okay, fissure, groove, canal, inferior orbital foramen, which consists of infraorbital nerves and vessels. So relations below maxillary and palatine sinuses. Here you can see there are maxillary sinuses. Above will be the inferior oblique and rectus muscle to and nerve to inferior oblique. Above here. Above means here, below means here. Below will be the maxillary sinuses and above we will have inferior oblique muscle and inferior rectus muscle along with the nerve to inferior oblique. What are the clinical applications? Commonly involved in blowout fractures. You can see this is a blowout fracture, that is a fracture with a ball or a fist. You can see when there is a blowout fracture like this, because of counter Cook mechanism, the pressure will go like this and reflect back. While reflecting back, it will cause damage to the inferior wall. Okay, so inferior wall fractures are more common with blowout fractures. Blowout injuries. Orbital 4 can be approached by inferior orbitotomy procedure. Blowout fracture, inferior orbital nerve and vessels are all get involved and there will be damage. So because there is damage to the vessels and nerves, there will be diplopia, restriction, because there will be entrapment of the inferior rectus muscle in this fracture. Here will be the inferior rectus muscle. Here there will be entrapment of the muscle in this fracture. So there will be restriction of the movements. And sometimes here you can see what this is hanging out is the orbital fat. This orbital fat also will get entrapped into this fracture and there will be enophthalmos. Okay, now coming to the lateral wall, this is also a triangular wall like the inferior wall. Anteriorly it is formed by zygomatic bone and inferiorly, posteriorly by the posterior wing of the sphenoid. So this is the zygomatic bone. You can see the lateral wall, you can touch like this, that will be the zygomatic bone. This is formed by anteriorly by the zygomatic bone and posteriorly by the greater wing of sphenoid. This yellow part is the greater wing of sphenoid. For spina recti lateralis, it is a bony projection on the posterior part of.
Okay, you go to the okay, I will take that class. Don't worry.
Okay.
What is this topic about? Anatomy of the orbit?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Go to the OP, otherwise there will be a problem. Okay. Good morning. It is a pleasant surprise for you. So, madam is talking about the anatomy of the orbit, right? So, basically, the bony orbit comprises of 7 bones. Okay. And in the roof, you have 2 bones, that is the frontal bone and the sphenoid bone, partly. And then the lateral wall, you have again two bones, that is the zygomatic bone and the greater wing of sphenoid. So if you look at this particular picture, you can understand that this is A is the zygomatic bone and B is the greater wing of the sphenoid. Okay, so this particular bony cavity is a picture of a right orbit. Okay, right orbit. So this is your zygomatic, this colored portion is A is the zygomatic bone, B is the your greater wing of the sphenoid. Okay, so between this greater wing and the lesser wing of the sphenoid is your superior orbital fissure. Okay, so it is a comma shaped like defect that we are going to talk about in detail, and this particular circular aperture which you can see is the optic foramen. Okay, so basically lateral wall, you just remember that it is two bones, that is the zygomatic bone predominantly and the greater wing of the sphenoid. Okay, fine. And you have this suture. This is the zygomatico-frontal suture. Okay, now then again there is a spiny projection, bony projection, which is called as spina recti lateralis, wherein which some of the fibers of the lateral rectus will get attached to. Okay, so that is about in brief about the lateral wall. What happened? Has it gone? Okay, fine, right. So then, so this is again another picture showing this superior orbital fissure, and this bony projection is your Whitnall's tubercle. And here you have supraorbital notch, and on the medial side you have a lacrimal fossa. Okay, and inferiorly you have the maxillary bone forming the floor of the orbit predominantly, and there is a foramen beneath that, that is called as infraorbital foramen. Okay, so in the medial wall you have three bones, that is your lacrimal bone. Anterior to posteriorly you have a lacrimal bone, and then you have ethmoid bone, and then you have posteriorly you have sphenoid bone. Okay, so all these three bones forms the medial wall of the orbit. Sometimes this posterior inferiorly also you have a palatine bone that forms predominantly part of the floor of the orbit along with the maxilla. So now we look at about this particular superior orbital fissure. So what does superior orbital fissure transmits? It transmits so many vessels and nerves. Okay, so and this particular superior orbital fissure is again divided into three compartments. Okay, so basically that particular thing is divided into three compartments by the annulus of Zinn. Okay, so in the superior compartment you have, excuse me, hello mame, అమ్మా పొరపాటు వచ్చింది, నేను మళ్ళీ చేస్తా క్లాస్లో. So this particular annulus of Zinn, it divides the superior orbital fissure into three compartments. Okay, so superiorly, middle and inferior. In superiorly you have lacrimal nerve, frontal nerve and a trochlear nerve, which will be coming. So just remember that LFT, so lacrimal, frontal and trochlear. Okay, and along with that you can also have a vein which is called as superior ophthalmic vein, and the middle portion of the annulus of Zinn you have superior and inferior divisions of the oculomotor nerve. Okay, and whereas the inferior part you will have abducens nerve as well as inferior ophthalmic vein. So these are some of the important nerves and blood vessels which arises from superior orbital fissure. So now coming to the relations of the lateral wall. What is lateral to the lateral wall? You have this temporal fossa. Okay, and in the posterior part you have middle cranial fossa which is above. Okay, and medially in the lateral wall, in the medially you have the lacrimal nerves and vessels and zygomatic nerve and their communications. What is the importance of the lateral wall? Okay, Okay, basically lateral wall is the strongest wall, and then frequently it is being subjected to the trauma. So whenever somebody wants to vacuum, probably they'll vacuum from the temporal side. So once somebody vacuum from the temporal side, then you can have a problem of fracture of zygomatic bone. But this zygomatic bone is a very strong bone. The surgical importance and the clinical importance for this particular thing is, whenever there is a tumor behind the eyeball which is pushing it forward, you call that condition as proptosis. So there are some retroorbital tumors or retroocular tumors, like for example cavernous hemangioma or optic nerve glioma or optic nerve meningioma. These are some of the structures which are behind the eyeball. Eyeball is there. Behind the eyeball, what do you have? You have optic nerve, is it not? And blood vessels. So the tumors arising from the optic nerve is your optic nerve glioma and a meningioma, and the blood vessels from which cavernous hemangioma can also arise. So whenever you have such tumors, what these tumors does is they push the eyeball forward. So whenever there is an antero-posterior displacement of the eyeball, you call that condition as axial proptosis. Probably today in the afternoon, I think Suman or Vivek will be taking class on that. Okay, so about the proptosis. So just remember that the most common cause for proptosis is thyroid ophthalmopathy. Okay, whether it is unilateral or bilateral. And coming to the tumors, I said you have cavernous hemangioma, optic nerve glioma, and optic nerve sheath meningioma. The reason why I am telling about this is these tumors occupy the posterior part of the orbit. So if at all you want to remove the tumor surgically, you have to dissect this lateral wall. Okay, so as I showed you in that picture here, this is your zygomatico-sphenoid suture. So you cut the bone from here till here and enter behind the eyeball and remove the tumor. It is like a Pandora's box. Okay, once you enter, you don't know what you will be hitting, but still that is the most favored surgical approach for retroorbital tumors. Okay, so because you get a lot of space, so the incisions you call it as Cronlin's incision or Stalwart's incisions. Okay, lateral orbitotomy, because you are removing the lateral wall of the orbit and removing the tumor. So it is a Cronlin's operation or lateral orbitotomy. So that much is enough for the lateral wall. Now coming to the superior wall. So this superior wall is some triangular shape, I believe. You have a frontal bone here, and posteriorly this B part is called the lesser wing of the sphenoid. So predominantly the roof is formed by frontal bone and lesser wing of sphenoid. Understood? So just remember that about the thing. Okay, now coming to the various notches, I think, and the fossas. So here this roof separates the frontal sinus and the anterior cranial fossa, and in the superolateral part of the orbit, for example, this is a picture of a, which one? It is a left bony orbit. Okay, why? Because you have to look at this particular lacrimal bone. Okay, identify this lacrimal bone and these notches. If they are medial, then you know that depending upon the orientation, this is a left bony orbit. Okay, so now what does this superior orbital wall contains? It contains a fossa. This is called as a lacrimal gland fossa. So where exactly this lacrimal gland is situated? It is situated in the superolateral part of the orbit, in the fossa, that is called the lacrimal gland fossa. This is where the main lacrimal gland will sit, and this main lacrimal gland contains two parts. One is the orbital part and a palpebral part, and I am not going into details about that. Probably somebody would have already dealt about that. Okay. Now then, coming to the various notches, you have a trochlear notch and a superior orbital notch. Okay. So here it is present. The thing which is most medial is trochlear, wherein which there is attachment for the pulley of the superior oblique. Okay. So this is a trochlear fossa, and here you have a notch. This is superior orbital notch, through which superior orbital nerve or supraorbital nerve arises. Okay, right. Now, what are the relations? So, obviously, above this, what is there? It is the frontal lobe and the meninges. And below is you have periorbita and all other structures which are there within the behind the eyeball, that is periorbita, frontal nerve, trochlear nerve, LPS, that is your levator, palpebral, superior, superior rectus, all these things are there. Okay. So, and then medially you have that medial wall, laterally you will have that lateral wall. Okay. So, now what is its significance? So, the significance is a sharp object injury through upper lid can penetrate the roof and it can damage the frontal lobe. Okay. So whenever this orbital roof anomalies are there or fractures, it can lead to pulsatile exophthalmos. Okay. What is pulsatile? Because of the meningeal sheath covering the blood vessels, they can transmit some pulses. So the whenever you try to palpate the swelling, you will have a pulsatile proptosis. So since roof is neither perforated, it can easily be nipped away in transfrontal orbitotomy. Sometimes if the tumor is so big, along with the lateral wall, again you need to approach from the superior orbit, that is transfrontal approach. Okay. So sometimes a big tumor, like as in cases of optic nerve glioma, you need to confine yourself for doing a transfrontal orbitotomy. Okay. Now coming to the base of the orbit. Okay. So what is the base of the orbit? Whatever this exposed part which you are seeing here, this is the base, and whatever is towards the optic foramen is your apex of the orbit. Understood? So basically it is a quadrangular or a pear shaped kind of a orbital cavity. So as the name suggests, the base of the orbit is the anterior open end of the orbit, and you have all these various bony margins. So it is imperative that in case of a proptosis, you need to palpate or try to insinuate your finger between this bony margin and the lids. Okay. So now what do you have? You have a superior orbital margin, which is predominantly formed by a frontal bone. And in the medial 2/3 and 1/3 and lateral 2/3, you have this superior supraorbital notch, which are transmitting these nerves and vessels. Okay. And medially you will have supratrochlear one, which transmits those things. Now what is next? You have lateral orbital margin. It is predominantly formed by zygomatic process of the frontal bone. So this is the zygomatic process of the frontal bone. This entire thing is frontal bone. This is towards zygomat. That is why it is called zygomatic process. Okay, of the frontal bone, and this is the main zygomatic bone. Okay. Now inferior orbital margin. inferior orbital margin. Laterally it is formed by part of the your zygomatic bone and medially it is by the maxilla bone. Okay. So and this maxilla medially it is continuous as a anterior lacrimal crest. Okay. And then what do you have beneath this thing? In this picture it is not visible. Beneath this maxilla, within the maxillary bone, you have infraorbital foramen which transmits infraorbital nerve. The importance of that is you will come to know whenever there is a blowout fracture of the orbit where the floor of the orbit is fractured. Okay, so that is when you will have infraorbital anesthesia because the nerve gets affected and there will not be any sensation on that particular aspect. Okay, and the medial orbital margin, as I said, anterior lacrimal crest, and above is you have again your frontal bone. Okay, now after knowing about this particular anatomy of the bony orbit, you need to know something about the congenital anomalies. Okay, so what are these congenital anomalies of the bony orbit? These are as follows. You have certain conditions called as craniosynostosis. Of course, it is related with the skull sutures, but however, I think by mistake Dr. Kirti has put here, but doesn't matter. It may be useful for you in a long run. Okay, so just I'll ask now Dr. Sneha to go through these things and explain to them. I'll go have water and come. Okay, congenital anomalies. Sneha, sit. Read.
So coming to the congenital anomaly, that is craniosynostosis, there is premature closure of the skull sutures. The first one is that Crouzon syndrome. It has short anteroposterior diameter of the skull, mid-facial hypoplasia, prominent lower jaw, shallow orbit, hypertelorism, and V-pattern exotropia. Okay. So this is Crouzon syndrome. So this is here you can see in the pictures V-pattern exotropia. Coming to the next one, it is Apert syndrome. It is oxycephaly, syndactyly, weak nose, low set ears, developmental delay, and shallow orbits with proptosis and hypertelorism is present. This is Apert syndrome. So next one is the mandibulofacial dysostosis. That is its condition resulting from hypoplasia of zygoma and mandible. So ocular features include indistinct inferior orbital margin, coloboma of the lower eyelid, anti-mongoloid slant, and the systemic features are macrostomia with high arched palate, external ear deformity. You can see in this picture all these features: external ear deformity and bird-like face. Okay. And next one is the median facial cleft syndrome. The main ocular features of this developmental anomaly are hypertelorism, telecanthus, divergent squint, and main systemic features include cleft nose, cleft lip and palate, and V-shaped frontal hairline that is called as widow's peak. The next condition is hypertelorism. So what is hypertelorism? It is a condition of widely separated eyeballs resulting from widely separated orbits and broad nasal ridge. The picture you can see here is a broad nasal ridge and widely separated eyeballs. So hypertelorism may occur de novo or as a part of various syndromes such as Apert syndrome, Crouzon syndrome, and medial facial cleft syndrome, as I told earlier. So ocular features of hypertelorism are increased IPD, that is interpupillary distance. It may be 85 mm. Normally, the average IPT of an adult is 60 mm, so it is increased here. Next one is telecanthus, divergent squint, anti-mongoloid slant, and optic atrophy may be associated in some cases due to narrow optic canal. So next one is the apertures at the base of the orbit. Base of orbit is closed partly by the globe, extraocular muscles, and the facial expansions. These facial expansions and superior and inferior oblique muscles, they bound 5 orifices between them and orbital margins. These are the communications between orbital cavity and deep portion of the eyelid. Through them, blood and pus passes out of the orbit. Further spread in the lid is prevented by the orbital septum. So coming to the superior aperture, it is comma shaped. So this is the superior aperture in the picture above, superiorly. So the shape is comma shape. It lies between the roof and the upper surface of the LPS. And fat from the superomedial lobe may herniate through this aperture. Okay, so this is the superior aperture, it is comma shaped. And the next one is the superomedial aperture. So this is the superomedial aperture here. It is vertically oval, as you see in this picture, it is vertically oval. It lies between reflected tendon of superior oblique and medial check ligament. This transmits infratrochlear nerve, dorsal nasal artery, and angular vein. Okay, so this superomedial aperture, it transmits 3 structures, that is infratrochlear nerve, dorsal nasal artery, and angular vein. So herniation of fat through this space is common cause of lobulated prominence in old people. The third one is infromedial aperture. So this one is the infromedial aperture. It is also vertically oval. It lies between medial check ligament and inferior oblique and lacrimal sac. And the next one is the inferior aperture. That is triangular in shape. It is bounded by inferior oblique, arcuate expansion of inferior oblique, and floor of the orbit. So there are a total of 4 apertures, and then last one is the infrolateral aperture. It is vertically oval. It lies between arcuate expansion of inferior oblique muscle, and lateral check ligament. Next one is the apex of the orbit. It is a posterior end of the orbit. It has 2 orifices. Optic canal. It connects orbit to middle cranial fossa. It transmits optic nerve and surrounding meninges, and then ophthalmic artery. Normal adult dimensions are attended by 4 to 5 years. The length is 6 to 11 mm. Orbital end is vertically oval. Center is circular, and the cranial end is horizontally oval. Optic nerve glioma and meningioma causes unilateral enlargement of the optic canal. So enlargement of optic canal is caused by gliomas or meningiomas of the optic nerve. Superior orbital fissure. This is also a comma shape. It is bounded by greater and lesser ring of sphenoid. Fissure is divided into upper, middle, and lower part by the common tendinous ring. That is the annulus of Zinn. So structures passing from these structures is upper, middle, and lower. Coming to the upper part, it transmits superior ophthalmic vein, lacrimal nerve, frontal nerve, trochlear nerve. You can remember as LFT, it's a mnemonic for upper part. Coming to the middle part, it is nasociliary nerve, oculomotor nerve, and abducent nerve. Okay, so coming to the lower part of superior orbital fissure, it transmits inferior vein and sympathetic plexus. So this is very important for you. Coming to the periorbita, it is a periosteum lining orbital bones. It is loosely adherent except at orbital margins. Superior and inferior orbital fissures, optic canal, lacrimal fossa, and its sutures also. In optic canal, dural sheath is adherent to periorbita. Arcus marginale, that is a thickened periorbita at orbital margins. It gives attachment to orbital septum. So what is arcus marginale? It is thickened periorbita at the orbital margins, which gives attachment to the orbital septum.
She has prepared it extensively. I don't think it is so important for undergraduate point of view. Okay, this is the annulus of Zinn. Okay, so from where all these recti muscles they take their origin. Okay, next slide. Then you have this orbital fascia. Okay, you read about orbital fascia. Explain fascia.
So coming to the orbital fascia, it is a thin connective tissue membrane lining various intraorbital structures. So coming to fascia bulbi, it envelopes.
This also is not required. Remove that. Remove. All this is not required for them. Remove. Yes, surgical spaces of the orbit. You have 4. Tell them.
So orbit is divided into 4 surgical spaces. The importance of these spaces is that most of the orbital tumors tends to remain within a space in which they are formed. Okay, there are 4 spaces, that is subperiosteal space, peripheral orbital space, central orbital space, and subtenon space.
So show it in the picture. Okay.
Yes.
So behind the eyeball, okay, this is your surgical space that is called as central surgical space. Between the extraocular muscles and the periorbita is the peripheral orbital space. Okay, and beneath the bone is subperiosteal space, and that is lies between orbital bone and periorbita. And these are all the structures, tumors which can arise in this particular space. What are they? Dermoids, epidermoids, mucosal, subperiosteal abscess, and other things like these tumors. Okay. Next slide. Peripheral orbital space. It lies between periorbita and the peripheral extraocular muscles, as I told you. Okay. So usually, what is its importance? Whenever you want to give anesthesia, you have to give anesthetic agent into this peribulbar space or peripheral orbital space. Okay. And what does it contain? It contains some fat and some muscles, nerves, and vessels. So because the nerves are there, whenever you give anesthetic agent, it gets paralyzed. Okay. Next, what are the tumors which can occur in this peripheral surgical spaces? These are all various tumors like pseudotumor and then malignant lymphoma and so on and so forth. And sometimes you can have orbital myocystic sarcosis. Okay. Now the central orbital space, which is also called as intraconal space or retrobulbar space. Okay. So why this is important? The contents are optic nerve and meninges. So that is why tumor arising from optic nerve, that is glioma, meningioma, can occur. So what is its surgical importance? The retrobulbar tumors can arise in this space, and if you want to give a retrobulbar injection for anesthesia, you have to inject the anesthetic agent into this space. So since the space is very small, only small volume of anesthetic agent can be given here. But the danger is optic nerve, ophthalmic artery, all these vital structures are there. So there is a chance that the patient can have retrobulbar hemorrhage. Okay. So retrobulbar hemorrhage or accidental injury to optic nerve can create lot of problems. So for that reason, nowadays we are not giving retrobulbar injections. What we are giving is only peripheral peribulbar injections. Now the last thing, so what are the tumors? As I said, cavernous hemangioma, then optic nerve glioma, and so on and so forth. The last space is subtenon space. that is around the eyeball between sclera and Tennant's capsule. So pus collection in this particular space can be drained by giving an incision on Tennant's capsule through conjunctiva. Sometimes cataract surgery can be performed by giving anesthetic agent in the subtenous space also. Okay, next you have. Okay, so to sum up, in the anatomy of the orbit, you just remember that there are 7 bones which form the bony orbit. You have 4 surgical spaces. You need to know about the importance of superior orbital fissure. So superior orbital fissure is formed by the greater and lesser wing of the sphenoid, and the structures which are arising are LFT and SOV, that is lacrimal, frontal, trochlear and superior ophthalmic vein. And next is upper and lower division of oculomotor nerve and nasociliary nerve and abducens nerve, and inferiorly we have inferior ophthalmic vein. Okay, so regarding the tumors and all, that is all about proptosis. So whenever there is a tumor arising from structure and pushing the eyeball, that is abnormal forward push of the eyeball is called proptosis, depending upon where the tumor is arising. Simple. For example, if the tumor is arising from the lacrimal gland, the tumor will push the eyeball forward and down and in. Okay, so that is called eccentric proptosis. For example, you have a tumor in the superomedial wall, that is like in case of a dermoid cyst or a frontoethmoidal mucocele, if it is there, it will push the eyeball down and out. Okay, so that is how you should know about the pathology of this particular tumor, how this eccentric proptosis will occur. If the tumor is arising exactly behind the eyeball, that will cause axial proptosis. So axial proptosis and eccentric proptosis. So that is the importance of knowing about the anatomy of the orbit. And regarding the surgical space, because you need to know how to approach the tumor while performing surgery. So on the orbital walls, lateral orbitotomy, transfrontal orbitotomy, these are the most important orbitotomies which we commonly do. Medial wall also we will do. Okay. So in case of thyroid ophthalmopathy, you can do 3-wall decompression because there is a lot of infiltration and compressive optic neuropathy. So in order to relieve the pressure on the optic, now we will do a orbital decompression, that is 3-wall decompression. So I think I hope this much is enough for you. So any doubts, please ask us. We are free to answer your queries. So only 129 students is a very poor attendance. I will just see who are all absent. I will take them to task. Okay, now just give the right. No problem. Stop your recording. It's all recording. No problem. Stop it. You go to the recording.